So it's for office.
Yeah, I think you joined through two devices, no?
No,
Oh, really?
I don't know why. I and Arun were also
Yes,
wondering about this.
yes. I think that presentation is taking us one connection. I don't know.
Yeah. Welcome, Randy. So we'll wait for another 5 minutes time, no more. Hmm? And after that, our Orod will introduce you to the nurse. We'll listen to you. Yeah. It's the Dhala crater behind Amar. I think the photograph from Dhala crater.
So you
Sorry,
are,
I was muted.
yeah.
Dhala is completely eroded. We don't see anything in Dhala. So
That's
this is
just
Lonar.
lunar. Yeah, it looks like lunar. It's rounded like.
Yeah, we did drone survey a year ago. So these are photos from
Yeah.
those drone.
Okay. Just hold on. Yeah. Hello, Amar.
Yeah.
I think in 1 minute time, you can introduce the speaker to the audience and we can start the proceeding.
Sir, Amar
No,
is the
sorry.
speaker. Yeah,
Arun.
Arun.
Yes,
Sorry.
yes,
yeah,
Arun.
sorry. It's Arun. Omar is the speaker. Okay. So, sorry. I'm sorry.
But
I'm
I
getting
can
old.
I can introduce myself. It's a small introduction.
No,
You
I
have
think
already
this is.
created an impact on the
Uh,
speaker, sir.
Yeah, yeah. To start talk about impact structures, already impacted. Okay, Arun, go
okay,
ahead.
should I start?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Okay. Good afternoon, all. I'm delighted to introduce our today's speaker, Dr. Amar Agarwal, and thanks him for accepting our invitation for this presentation, despite his busy schedule. So, before jumping into the presentation, let me introduce Dr. Agarwal and give a brief overview of his illustrious academic career. Dr. Agarwal did his bachelor and master degree from Lucknow University and Banaras Hindu University, respectively. And then he earned his PhD from IIT Roorkee, complemented by DAT Sandwich Model Scholarship at the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, Germany. Soon after, he moved to Mexico as a postdoc fellow under the DGA PA fellowship. In 2017, he received the prestigious Alexander Humboldt postdoc fellowship. After completing his Humboldt postdoc at University of Freiburg, Germany, he joined IIT Kanpur as an assistant professor in 2019. With more than a decade of research career, he has published over 45 peer-reviewed publications in high-impact journals like JGR Solid Earth, International Journal of Impact Engineering, Nature Geosciences. We are privileged to have Dr. Agarwal with us today, who is going to share his insight on the fascinating dynamics of impact deformation at the Dhala impact crater. With this, I will now hand over the platform to Dr. Agarwal to start his presentation. Over to you, sir.
Thank you for the kind words. I don't think I deserve those. And to give a lecture in this illustrious forum, I am not so busy. There are professors who have taught me. There are professors whose papers I have read. I have friends here in this community, so it is my pleasure. And yeah, okay. So the title of today's talk is Deformation Within Seconds at Dhala Impact Crater. Yeah. So in this talk, we will mostly focus on the microstructures and magnetic properties of Dhala impact structure, and we will see how the shock affected them and how different lithologies formed at Dhala impact structure. Now, just to point out, since the time I started speaking, if there was an impact at the time that I started speaking, everything would have been finished by now. So this is about 18 seconds, and Dhala would have formed. This means that a hole of a diameter of about 11 kilometers, 10 kilometers, and several kilometers deep would have already formed in Bundelkhand. Well, there was no Bundelkhand area at this time, but in this geological area within 18-20 seconds. So this is very extremely fascinating for a structural geologist. The deformation is different from what we see in tectonic regimes, or at least what I have seen in tectonic regimes. And I hope that this is fascinating to all of you. Okay, so Arun has already given a very kind introduction. Thank you for that again. And I am very humbled, and so I skip this. What we do is in IIT Kanpur is that we study fast deformation caused by shock waves during hypervelocity impact cratering. This is a photo from Lona Crater, also my background. We were flying drone last year over there, and so we took this nice photo. Uh, it's quite different from tectonics, which has strain rates of less than 10 to power minus 6 per second, and even lower, 10 to power minus 10 per second. In case of impact cratering, the strain rates are 10 to power 6 to 10 to power 12 per second. Extremely fast. Peak shock pressure, which I usually dwell into, is between 1 to 50 gigapascal. Although during impact cratering, we have higher shock pressures, as you see in the image on the left. But usually, rocks that have suffered higher shock pressures are evaporated or become plasma. So they are not yet. I'm not investigating them yet.
Sir, sorry to intervene. I think
Yeah.
there's something to do with the screen. I think it's not full screen. I think the aspect ratio has changed. Could you make it like full screen? I think it's like it looks like a like
In
phone
full
screen.
screen mode, it has to be. It has to
Uh,
go in full screen
it's
mode.
in full screen. I think it has changed some aspect ratio. It's
Well, no, this made me full screen.
I think
Sorry,
yeah.
but it was like this since the beginning.
Initially it was good. I think now it's like aspect ratio has changed. It looks
Okay,
like a
let me
phone
see.
screen. Yeah, now it's
Okay.
perfectly fine. Yeah.
Is it
Yes.
better now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so I have a big screen, so I minimized everything.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
Got it.
Okay,
Yes.
so we use traditional methods like field studies, microstructural analysis, rock magnetic investigations. But recently, we have also started working on more innovative techniques like high-speed deformation experiments. We also do mathematical modeling and hydrocore simulations. Uh, we have just started mathematical modeling and hydrocore simulations, so I
Oh,
will
okay.
show you some
Okay, okay,
preliminary
okay.
results. Okay. We have a lot of analytical tools now in our lab: polarizing microscope, U-stage microscope, scanning optical microscope, stitching microscope is coming up. We have simulation tools like ICL2D and LS-DYNA, and we have a high speed. We are building a high speed gun
Oh,
which
that's
can
not.
fire up to Mach 5, so 1.6, 1.8 kilometers per second. Okay, now coming to Dhala.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, unlike
Oh,
Lonar, which
okay,
is
okay, okay,
only
okay, sir.
say less than 50,000 years
Okay,
old, Dhala is a very old crater, 1.7 to 2.2 billion year old. It's completely eroded, so we do not see a ditch. And this is why Dhala is called an impact structure and not an impact crater. So Lonar is an impact crater because we see a hemispherical or a depression. In case of Dhala, we do not see depression. We only see rugged terrain. So it's called an impact structure. This is a geological map of Dhala after, so we modified it after Pati 2008. There are three or four main lithologies which I would focus on today. So we have in the pink and the orange, we have the unshocked, we have the target rocks, which are usually granitoids and diorite. And then we have these white gray things, which are fractured granitoids. We have this purple, which is monomic lithic breccia. And then we have these small six red outcrops of impact melt rocks. So the other lithologies are not which have been reported from Dhala like Suvite, etc. They are not exposed on surface. These have been reported from drill cores by AMD. And but on surface, if you go to Dhala, you usually see these two or three lithologies. Rocks that are formed because of impact cratering are called impactites. So from now, I will refer to them as impactites. We have fractured granite, we have monomic breccia, and we have impactment rocks, the three impactites of Dhala. I would like to show you some of the outcrop images. So this is unshot granite on the left. This is a diorite sample, and immediately if we see what impact has done, it has caused a lot of fracturing, and this lithology is termed as monomic breccia. So we have a lot of fracturing and brecciation of the rock. Then, okay, these outcrops in red are called impact melt rocks. Impact the pressure adiabatic compression caused melting of the rocks, and these rocks look very similar to a volcanic rock. So in C, you will see that there are flow bandings. In A and B, you see they are vesicles. So these are typical rocks which we find in at Dhala. Again, impactable rocks, monomic breccia, and unshowered. I've kept in this fashion because I thought to make a little column that the rocks which are older are at the bottom and the one which is relatively younger is at the top. We will see how the monomic breccia and the impactable rocks formed within seconds. Okay. So this is a thin section, a normal thin section of a granite, and we have the diorite over here. Then we have monomic breccia. Here I would like to bring your attention. I would see if I can zoom in. Yeah. So this is the entire thin section image of a monomic breccia. Arrow shows the shock direction, which is not relevant for this talk. But you see, there are these clasps of granite, and within each of these clasps, you also see those feldspars and other grains. Yeah, so these are clasps of granite. Uh, then this is another thin section, and cross-polarized light. You see plagioclases and quartz. All of them have suffered a lot of fracturing, but also because these are old rocks, they have suffered weathering and alteration as well. Then we have a toasted structure. This is formed in plagioclase, and this indicates shock. So presence of and indicates shock pressures of around 1 or 2 gigapascal. Okay. So on the top, I have images from impact melt rocks. So we see these violent quartz structures, a very good indicator of shock. So these indicate shock pressures of 3 or 4 gigapascal, which already indicates that monomic breccia suffered lower shock pressures than impact melt rocks. It is also understandable because higher shock pressure would be able to melt the rock, and low shock pressures fractures the rock. Then we have these very uh, famous microstructures called planar deformation features in quartz, also taken from impact melt rock. There are two sets of planar deformation features, so these usually represent shock pressures above 6 gigapascal. We also have an image of a cubic hematite formed at the boundaries of a cubic titanomagnetite. It's important to see that the impact rocks have magnetite because we will be talking about magnetic properties in the later slides. So this is a preliminary ICL simulation, a hydrocoat simulation of the impact crater. I'll start it for you, and we can see how the Dhala crater was supposed to be formed. So I will start it again. If you see the shock wave actually went through, I will try to move very slowly here. So this is where this is say zero point 0.5 seconds. The crater has already opened. I am not sure if I can zoom in. Yeah, I can zoom in. The crater has already opened. The small orange portion, if you can see over here, is the projectile. So the projectile is already almost vaporized. This is our shock wave. Yeah. So you can see that the shock wave already had a shock front of about a half a kilometer. So it was a big shock wave. If I continue the flame, and the crater opens, and we have the ejector blanket, and somewhere around 16 and 17 seconds, the crater has completely opened, which means that the transient crater cavity has formed. This is the maximum volume of the Dhala crater. Of course, it's a preliminary simulation, so we still have to fix a lot of things over here. But this gives you an example that the maximum size of the cavity at Dhala was already achieved in 17 seconds. And there's the title of the talk, that deformation at Dhala in seconds. This is a big ejector blanket if I continue. And we only have good simulation until this point. Uh, so the ejector blanket open now. If I go back to the initial few seconds, so this is time zero. Uh, This is always yeah. Yeah. Now in the next image, I will zoom in this central part, and we can see how the plastic is strained and damage was. So this is at 1 second mark. And here you can see that at 1 second mark, all the material which has a brown color, so it's an axial symmetric schematic representation. So on the left side, you see damage, and on the right side, you see total plastic strain. Everything which has brown color on the left side means it has a damage of about 1, which in terms of impact rating means that it has lost cohesion. Uh, and then you already see these formation of these kind of fractures over here at 1 second. So these fractures which are forming these brown radiating things near the surface, and this area of higher strain near the first surface, these fractures are usually called near surface fractures. Then we have these fractures which are dipping outwards. These are usually conical fractures. And then there are other fractures which have still not developed at Dhala at 1 second. So already you see that within 1 second, we have two set of major fractures developing. Now, the question as a structural geologist comes that what can we do with these fractures? Yeah. So Okay, so we had the thin section images. In ArcGIS, we tried to map the fracture. We took samples and we tried to map the fracture intensity of these at these sites. So this was done by my PhD student Swastik Behra. And what we see is that if I zoom in on the first map here, so these are few data points, but each of these points is made up of 200 or 300 data. The star the error was less than the symbol, so we are not showing the error over here. And what we see is that, sorry, I have to tell you how we plotted this. So this is azimuth at the on the x-axis, and we have intensity on the y-axis. Azimuth of 0, 0, 0 means that this sample were taken. So if we have the center of the crater, this was taken from the north of the crater. Azimuth of 90 would mean that this was taken from the east with respect to the center of the crater. Azimuth of 180 means that this was samples were taken directly south of the center of the crater, and so on. What we see over here is that samples which were taken from say 60 degrees 060 from the north have the higher fracturing intensity. This means that they have suffered higher deformation, brittle deformation. The next step that we did was that we did XRD analysis of these rocks, and we concentrated on quartz 110 peak. We calculated the full width at half maximum. And interestingly, the samples that were collected from 060 also show higher or thicker quartz 100 peak. Now, thicker peaks, wider peaks usually means a more damaged crystal lattice, which means that the crystal lattice had higher strain over here. So now we have two completely different sets of evidences. Microfracturing intensity and lattice strain both show that samples collected from 060 in this range had higher fracture intensity and higher intensity of brittle deformation, let's say it like that. Now the question comes, what does this mean? To solve this, we did some rock press and split Hopkinson bar experiment. So this was published by my MTech student in 23. We took two samples for split Hopkinson pressure bar and two samples on rock press. We tried to give them comparable peak stresses, but different strain rates. So if you go from S1 to S4, the strain rate goes on decreasing. What we see is over here, if I zoom in, that the full width of half maxima of quartz and biotite are directly proportional to the amount of strain applied. So the effect is quite visible in biotite, but also quite clear in quartz. Yeah, and this means that directly that the rocks, in case of impact cratering, which had higher full width of half maxima, suffered higher strain, higher mechanical strain. Then comes the question about fracture density. So we did a hypervelocity impact experiment at Freiburg because we don't have this facility yet in India. So we fired a bullet at a target. The impact was like this. The bullet was fired at about 6 kilometers per second, so extremely fast. Yeah, and the after we fired, we brought the rock and we sawed it in half and we analyzed. We made a thin section directly below the point of impact and we analyzed the fracture intensity. So we see that directly below the point of impact, we have higher fracture intensity. Now, both of this indicates that fracture density and the full width of half maxima are directly related to stresses applied by shock waves. So this led us to conclude that now we use these findings to conclude the results of Behra et al. This is Dhala map again. We have the samples over here. The samples for 060 are about this. So we were able to conclude that the direction of impact at Dhala was towards northeast. Now, this is an important finding because before this study, there was no other method to prove or to show the direction of impact at a weathered or eroded crater. Direction of impact was always shown using elliptical non-circular morphology of the crater or by asymmetric distribution of projectile. But in old craters, the ejecta is the first to be eroded away, and then in old craters the morphology is often not visible. So all the famous craters that you know, Dhala, be it Dhala, Redefort, Chicxulub, Sudbury, the morphology is not preserved either because of erosion or because of post-impact deformation, like in case of Sudbury. So this gave an extremely handy new technique where we could use these weakly deformed rocks or fracture monomigrids in this case, and we could show the direction of impact. Now coming to the question that how did this monomigrids get formed within seconds? So just give me a minute. I'll give you some basics of impact cratering first. Uh, so as soon as the projectile hits the target, it penetrates, and this is called the contact and compression stage. In this, the shock wave radiates outwards, hemispherical shock wavefront radiates outwards from the point of impact, and an equal and opposite intensity of the shock wave goes into the projectile. Yeah. Now you can imagine that a shock wave that caused a cavity which was about 7, 8 kilometers in diameter and few hundred and several hundred meters in deep, how strong these shock waves were. And this equal amount of shock waves was transferred back to the projectile, and this is why the projectile, in almost all cases, completely vaporizes. And we only see geochemical evidences of the projectile in hypervelocity impact. If the impact is slow, then we can find meteorites. Okay. Now, by the end of the contact and compression stage, we have formation of this uh, cavity, and the ejecta is trying to fly out. The material flow is given in these blue vectors. So the material is flowing radially outwards, and the shock wave is moving. So here you see that the material movement is superseding the shock wave. Now, the next stage is called the excavation stage, in which the shock wave catches with the material flow. We have the full developed ejecta curtain, and the crater cavity has opened to its maximum volume. This is called the transient crater. So this is what I showed you in the video, and this formed at Dhala in about 17-18 seconds from the point of impact. Now, so we know that the ejecta goes out, and whatever is left in the crater is the impact melt. Now we have left with these 6 outcrops of impact melt at Dhala. Uh, uh, so we went to the outcrops. I already showed you the photograph that they show very nice flow structures. They also show vesicles typical of a volcanic flow. Yeah, we took samples of these. We took samples from these rocks, oriented rock samples. We did anisotropy of magnetic substability. And if I plot the K1 axis of the anisotropy of the magnetic substability, it gives a maximum over here. And if I make an arrow, then the maxima is pointing somewhere towards northwest. Yeah? But this doesn't give a complete picture. So what we want to do is we want to see the flow vectors of or the magnetic vectors of each at each side. Now these are the stereonets from each side. The red ones show K1 axis, the green triangles show K2 axis, and the purple or blue circles show K3 axis. Now K1, K2, K3 axis are the 3 principal axes of AMS ellipsoid, similar to the 3 principal axes of the strain ellipsoid. So in a very basic nutshell, K1 axis would be pointing towards in a volcanic flow, K1 axis would be pointing towards the direction of flow. And this is what we do over here. There are cases where other axes point towards. So to certify this, we took hand samples and cylinders, and we compared the orientation of K1, K2, and K3 axis. And we could see that the K1 axis was aligned with the elongation direction of the grains in the hand sample, and thus we conclude that K1 would give the flow directions. Okay. So if I put flow vectors over here, if I put arrows towards K1, you see that in most of the sites, in all the sites, it is towards the west. Yeah. Now let's divide this into 2 categories. We have site IM1 to IM 1, 3, 5, 6, and 4. This is one category. IM 2 is another category. Now, with respect to this crater cavity, which formed in 18 seconds, IM 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, these are showing vectors towards outside of the crater, whereas IM2 is showing vectors towards inside of the crater. So this means that although the rock type was same, impact melt rock, there were two different processes that were happening, which led to some of the sites showing vectors outwards and some of the sites showing vector inwards. Right, what you see on the image in the left now. So we interpreted from this that site IM 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, they were showing vectors of the excavation stage of the crater, where the impact melt was being pushed out of the crater cavity. This was very interesting because this was never shown before. This we predicted it, we could simulate it, we could do it in experiments, but this frozen snapshot of the excavation stage where vectors are pointing outwards from within a crater was never available from any other crater on Earth. So there are 200 craters on the Earth, but Dhala was the only one that froze this very interesting microsecond or second time interval in its formation. IM2 on the other hand shows a later stage. IM2 on the other hand shows when the material has moved out or was moving out of this slope, going up slope, but then the kinetic energy stopped, finished, and then it started to flow back. So IM2 shows the stage maybe few seconds later when the melt was pushed out and then it started to flow back. So just in these six sites, we could see two, and in the same rock type, we could see these two very interesting stages of impact cratering. While IM 1, 3, 4, 5, 6 showed the excavation stage, uh, IM2 was showing the modification stage in which gravity plays more role and the material is sort of slumping down and settling down because of the gravity. And this all we could see from these sites. And this is how impact melt shock form. Of course, I want to give you a small disclosure over here that although the impact melt shocks formed were melted, they took some more time in cooling down. So we do not expect these rocks to cool down within seconds. They might have taken several years. Depending upon the thickness of the melt sheet, we do not know that yet. We are investigating it. So they would have taken different amount of time, but not within seconds. But they formed within the seconds. The flow vectors and everything was sort of frozen. The material was already oriented in these impactable shocks within seconds. And also our investigation showed that the temperature was around 1500 degrees centigrade when they were in place. And because this is a temperature of around the temperature of melting temperature of magnetite. So we say that some of the magnetites were already present in the belt and some of the magnetites were new. The one that you saw earlier was an older magnetite, pre-existing, but this was aligned because of the forces of the impact rating in the direction of flow. So we could also predict the temperature of the impact melt from our study. The second important rock type is monomic brixia, and we are still working on it. But I have some interesting results which I would like to show you. Now, monomic brixia actually formed within seconds. Um, so I bring you back to this map of Dhala crater. We have the granites here, we have the diorites over here, and this we have regarded as, so you do not see over here because I wanted to raise this as a question, that this we all call now as fractured granites, which sometimes have a gradual boundary with monomic brixia. These purple are monomic brixia. So our recent studies have shown, field studies have shown that monomic brixia occurs as patches in between these fractured rocks. The actual origin we are investigating, I would like to show you some results over here. So we saw, before I bring you there, we saw that the impactment rocks suffered a lot of stresses, mechanical stresses, thermal stresses also, but also mechanical stresses. Because of the impact, they were moved out, a part of them was brought back, and they had a lot of uh, movement in their life. Monomic brixia are different. Monomic brixia When we did AMS of the monomic vexor, so we had a lot of samples, they showed a very interesting trend. And if you see over here, I will show you other data also, that most of these magnetic fabric, these lines, these blue thin lines, most of them are aligned almost northwest southeast. Yeah. So if you see, there are few outliers over here, but most of them. So for example, if you see slide 4.1, 4.2, site 6, 7.2, 7.1, 8.2, 8.1, so on. Yeah, there are two or three outliers over here. For example, site 1 is an outlier because this is a prolate fabric, all the others give ovulate fabric. So something happened over here when we leave this for now. Again, bringing back to the most important thing, that most of the magnetic fabrics over here show a very strong northwest southeast trend, strike direction, and they are either, so if we plot K3 of this, we see that they are either plunging to, they are either dipping towards uh, the magnetic fabrics are either dipping towards uh, southwest, or they are dipping towards northeast, and the K3 is the pole to this foliation. So we see the K3 plunging in opposite direction. So this is a very interesting bimodal distribution of K3. We do not know yet why this bimodal distribution is. So if I plot a line from the a bisector over here, this line goes northwest southeast. This is aligns with the fold axis of Indians in the region, but we are not sure. So this is why I do not want to comment on this. We need to investigate this further. But moving on, very interesting is the strong clustering of the K3 axis. Yeah, this means that whatever happened did not affect the magnetic fabrics. If I go on further and I zoom on in this map, you see, let's take any site, for example. Let's take 4.1, for example. Yeah, 4.1 and 4.2. So this was a big monomic Vexia outcrop, or maybe several hundred square meters. We usually take these big blocks 20, 30 meters apart to make more than one paleomagnetic rock magnetic site. Now, even in this, you see that K3 and K3 of the two sites is matching precisely. Yeah. K1, the red ones are matching, and as well as K2 is matching. We can take any other site that you like. There are only, we can take say 9.1 over here, 9.1, 9.2, 9.3 over here. Yeah? So they were taken, they are actually in field, they are different outcrops over here, but we considered them as one outcrop with three different sites. Again, you see the trends of K1 squares, K2 triangles, and K3 circles in all those three sites matches precisely. This is very interesting. This usually we do not see in deformed rocks. I have worked on Himalaya a little bit. I've also worked on rocks from Caledonites and also in Mexico, portrait rocks. We do not see such a strong clustering. This strong clustering, without doubt, means that the magnetic fabrics were not affected by impact or any other activity. There was no process that moved the magnetic grains, that translated the magnetic grains. So movement means both rotation and translation. Yeah? The rocks were fractured and vexated. We saw field photographs. We saw thin sections of this, but the rocks were not moved. There was dilation, but there was no mixing of the rock. There was no transport of the material of monomic bricks. So they are almost in situ. I am afraid to use the word in situ because, but there was no movement. Now, and there are other field evidences also. So if I take your attention to this quartz vein in monomic bricks here, uh, this is from somewhere from the south of the crater near Site 9. So we see this very nice deformed quartz vein. This is pre-impact, yeah, and it has a sort of a S shape. Now, if I zoom into different parts of these quartz veins, for example, this blue or purple square, you see that the quartz vein itself is brecciated. Yeah, Also, if you see in the red part, you see that the quartz vein itself is brecciated in the green square also. But the original pre-impact S-shaped structure of the quartz vein is still preserved. So we also have field evidences that suggest that although there was brecciation, intense fracturing, there was not a lot of movement in the rocks. Now the question comes, why? Why was there no movement in the rocks? So let me take you back to this image. Oops, uh, sorry. Yeah. So this is a typical complex structure. We have a central effect, we have melt over here. So this is where our melt would be in backmelt rocks. And with this crisscross, I have tried to show the monomic breaks here. So the monomic breaks here actually occurs outside the crater boundary. It suffers usually pressures below 3 gigapascal, and it occurs outside the crater boundary. So in that simulation, I was also showing you a zone of fractures that coincides with the monomic breaks here. Now, what happens in this region is, and we are able to predict because of Dhala, that because of the overburden, and because of a thick amount of rocks already present on top of it, there was not enough uh, uh, place for the monomic dexter to move around. And secondly, because the shock wave had already traveled to several hundred meters, the shock pressure is decreased below 3 gigapascal. So they were also not strong enough to impart enough kinetic energy. Thus, low kinetic energy, the first reason. The second, absence of a lot of space and constriction from the overburden for led to monomic brexia to fracture, brecciate, but do not move. So this is how the monobrexia formed at Dhala. And sorry, one of my students gave this final solution for Dhala crater, morphology of the Dhala crater. So we have some rock tags which I told that they are not exposed in the field. We take it from MCB10. So this is from Professor Jayanpati's 2010 paper. He takes this MCB10 is a AMD drill core. Based on this and based on our understanding of Dhala crater, we proposed this cross section where we have the where we have the impactment troughs in the red, we have the monomic brexia outside it, and we have the fractured granite over here. And the present day crater rim is situated somewhere over here. Now, and the quadratic projectile came from somewhere. So this is a 2D representation, so I couldn't show northeast very well, but came somewhere here and was striking in the direction of it. Here you will see another very important conclusion that we are making. We are saying that the present day crater ring is about 4 or 5 kilometers in diameter. This has recently been an issue in disputed issue in Dhala. Pati in 2008, based on the outcrops of monomic brexia, suggested that the crater diameter is about 11 kilometers. Then there was a paper from Lee which suggested that the crater diameter is about 8 kilometers. Kirti et al. From Kerala University, they published a paper 2 years ago suggesting that the crater diameter is 4 kilometers or 3 kilometers. But remember, they were suggesting the original diameter of the crater. We are suggesting the present day diameter of the crater. So what we say is, if I take you back to this cross section, that the original crater diameter was somewhere around 10 or 11 kilometers, what you see over here. But because of the extreme weathering and because of the extreme erosion, the present day and the crater is like hemispherical. So the present day the crater diameter has reduced, and at the moment it is about 4 kilometers. So these 4 or 5 studies have given us a lot of information on the formation of impactment rocks, a very important stage of impact cratering, which is only for a few seconds. So there are very few evidences on this. And also on the formation of monomic brexia. Monomic brexia is also important because some of the Apollo samples that were brought back to Earth are monomic brexia. So it is very interesting always to study monomic brexia in impact craters. I think that is the end of my slide. Um, Thank you. But before that, I would the next the future study would be we are studying it right now is to better understand how structures interact with heterogeneous targets because these monomic bits at Dhala are present in patches, and we want to understand what happened and why they are only present in patches. So we are doing the structural investigation. We should be able to publish it by next year. And thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for such a wonderful presentation and also a really engaging one. And now the panel is open for discussion. Please go ahead. Santanu, sir, please.
I think I,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes,
I
sir.
think I should start. In
Yes,
that
sir.
case, ball will start rolling.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Amar, for your excellent talk, excellent work at Dhala Theatre. It's a good thing that I have learned from your things. But just a query, it's not a question. That the simulation that you showed, what was the angle of impact for that simulation?
So
Because
the
as I understand, for your Dhara, it was an oblique, right?
yeah.
So, but it seems that your simulation was a vertical impact. So, can you just clarify this?
Yeah. So the freely accessible tool, iSail, can only do two-dimensional impacts. We do not have the capability yet. By we, I mean the open planetary science community. Except for four people who developed iSail, nobody else has the capability of doing inclined impacts. So what we do is that we take 45 degree as the most probable angle of impact. Usually 45 degrees suggested as the most probable angle of impact. 17 kilometers per second is considered as the most probable velocity of the impact. We take the vertical component of the 17 kilometers per second, which is around 12 kilometers per second, and we make an impact using that. We are in process of purchasing LS Dyna, and that should allow us to develop our own simulation tools, and then we will be able to do 3D simulations.
Okay. I thought you already have LSI.
Yeah.
So, and in the simulation, and you just compare with the Dhala crater, that uplifted part at the center of the crater. So, do you see that uplifted part there really
No,
in
no,
Dhala
no,
crater?
no.
So, how
We
could
don't
you
see.
compare this thing?
So we
But
went with the previous authors who suggested that Dhala is a complex crater. So if I take you back uh, to the simulation, I don't know where it is now. Sorry, I forgot where it is. This one, yeah. So Pati suggested that it has a diameter of 10 kilometers. So
No, no,
we took a granitic target.
no,
We tried to fix a diameter
no,
of 11 kilometers, and we had a quadratic projectile. So these things are known. And then we try to simulate a complex crater. Now you see that this simulation runs till only 21 seconds because we are still unable to figure out the complex mechanisms of formation of the central uplift. So we don't know, and I don't know how yet how the central uplift formed.
okay, okay.
And so the LS Dyna
So,
is we
what?
are the project is sanctioned, so maybe by in 2 or 3 months we will buy LS Dyna.
Okay. So, what is about the depth of the crater that you were talking about? For example, in Loner, it should be around 120 to 150, right? That we
Yes,
know as minimum.
yes.
So, what is the depth of crater that
So
you are
here we are guessing that it is around 1.5 kilometers.
How do you guess
You
that?
Yeah, we are guessing. So 1 kilo. So usually in complex crater, the depth to diameter ratio is 1:1:10. So if we consider the in crystalline target rocks, so on Earth, so if we consider that the diameter was 10 kilometers, then we can guess that the depth was 1 kilometer. But this is a guess based on empirical
But the
relationship.
but the lithology of the crater for both these things, for Lonar and the Dhara, is different.
Yeah.
Lonar is basalt,
Yes.
and for Dhara it's a granitiate rock. So
Yeah.
that should have some relationship with the rock rheology, I think.
Yes. Yes, sir. It does. Dhala granite is harder, more resistant than the basalts at Lonar. And also basalts, there are 6 layers in Lonar basalts. They have intertrapians, so I think those intertrapians also played an important role in propagation of fractures. So Dhala was had a stronger target. But the empirical relation that I told you, 1:10, is for complex craters on Earth in crystalline
Okay.
target rocks, so granitic target rocks.
Okay, thank you. I think many people will have some query. Thank you so much.
Jyotirmay sir, please go ahead.
Hi Amar, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Uh, so I have a few questions regarding this simulation model that you are currently projecting. Why
Yeah.
what's the significance of the color of this host rock? Why they're uh, or is it just
So, sir, so again, these are symmetric images. On the left, I have tried to show the pressure, and on the right, I have tried to show the material movement. So, if I zoom in, then you can see actually
oh yeah,
formation of
right.
this crater rim folds, the overturned folds.
Okay, understood.
So we can fix this. So we can also show temperature over here, or as the image at the bottom, we can show damage and total plastic state. But sir, this is simulation.
No, I understand. I was just confused. What
Yeah.
makes this difference in color? Now clear. So
It has a lot of assumptions.
no, that's fine. The second question that I have, you did this XRD of the quartz as you said.
Yeah.
So you specifically chosen the high pressure polymorph quartz, is it or
No. Actually, not. No. So our study has shown, so both we did in Lonar, Dhala, and also experimental studies, that this XRD works only with weakly shocked rocks. Means that in normal quartz or normal plagioclases, if polymorphism happens, then this lattice strain doesn't work. So we only see this in shock pressures below 3 or 4 gigapascal. If we go to beta quartz or white, etc., then this doesn't work.
then I'm not exactly following the logic why you'd in one particular direction, even if it is the direction of shock, uh, the amount of quartz formation will increase.
So quartz formation is not increasing.
What,
Sorry if I was
I'm not
unable to. I will
yeah,
take
can
you
you
to
please?
I will take you to a supplementary slide. This one. So the we didn't consider the intensity of the peaks. We only considered the full width at a half maxima of the peaks. So the full width of half maxima is directly proportional to the lattice strain. So higher the full width of half maxima, higher will be the lattice strain. But there are a lot of caveats over here. First, that the shock should be less, so there should not be polymorphism, no melting, because then we at above 5 gigapascal we start to have recovery features. So the lattice deformation starts to recover. So it should be weakly shocked. Then we need to prepare the samples in a particular fashion. So we do not crush them a lot because this gives additional strain. We actually do this on thin sections, this kind of a study, and we polish the thin sections with EVSD standard polishing. And we do it. We put the thin sections in XRD machine and we do it. We usually consider the most prominent peak. So for quartz, it was 100. I think in this case, for magnetite, for example, we consider 311 peak. But
Okay.
this is only the thickness of the peak.
And the other question I saw, I think in your field also there are many dikes. Did you see any evidence of shock on the dikes, or the dikes came later?
Dikes were earlier. I want to investigate it in future.
Okay,
I want to investigate the dikes as well as the giant quartzite veins in future.
okay, okay, okay. Thank you very much. It's a really
Thank you.
nice talk. It's very we don't see this kind of work much, so congratulations on that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to ask questions?
Any more queries?
I think Sandeep. Sandeep, please go ahead.
Yeah, Shandeep, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Amar.
Hi,
Hello, Amar. How are you?
fine, thank you. How are you?
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Doing well. Okay. So, actually, obviously, first of all, congratulations for your nice talk, and it's a very lucid one as well. I have a few sets of questions, rather queries, because I have been to this place not for obviously means your line or kind of work, because I'm working in the Bundelkhand granitoids for quite some time now. So, what I want to learn first of all, is the uh, that is there any presence of like you have shown several means microstructure evidences of like the toe structure in the feldspar. So that is fine, and that is one of the very good evidences. But is there any presence of any high pressure temperature polymorph of quartz, which is undoubtedly the most reliable evidence of any kind of impact? Means if it is not on a purely basaltic rock like that we get to see in the lunar crater.
That's
So, means in
the
this case, do you find any such?
so there are two sets
Yeah,
of
please go
answers
ahead.
to
Please
this.
go. Yeah.
I we have not found high pressure polymorphs of quartz. V means my group, but we found these planar deformation features which form at shock pressures above 5 or 6 gigapascal. So there were two sets, and two sets. This particular orientation indicates that the shock pressures were above 6 gigapascal. But there are reports from Professor Jayant Pati who
Okay.
have found shatter
Mm-hmm.
cones that forms at above 2 gigapascal, and he has also found high pressure polymorphs of quartz. And he also reports in his 2010 paper these iridium anomalies. So there are irrefutable proofs that
Right.
this, yeah. But again, I'm not a geochemist, so I didn't work on geochemistry, and we
No.
have, yeah.
Just actually, I also had some discussion with Professor Pati. He actually lives very near to our place. So the
Oh,
thing is that means he has also commented on this thing specifically to me regarding that we don't get this kind of high pressure temperature polymorphs. So that is kind of a means I'm thinking in a manner that what could be the possible reasons that why we are not getting, though means it is an impact on granite, obviously there is a lot of quartz in it, then why we are not getting. So that is a kind
okay.
of a thing I think you can explore. I means
I,
obviously I don't work specifically in Dhala, but just I'm saying for your future studies you can explore in that domain as well further if
okay.
you want. The next
Thank
thing
you.
that I would like to actually simply match with your findings and mine, that in the surroundings of the Dhala crater, means I've been there twice during my field work. So whatever fracture pattern, brittle fracturing I am referring to, whatever fractal pattern that we get to see means in and adjacent to the Dhala crater, if you go even beyond 20, even 30 kilometers far in any direction from the Dhala crater, means any means north, east, and south, because west it's all Vindhyan. Soon after Dhala crater, means you can see Vindhyans, and also within the
Yes.
Dhala, it's
Yeah.
all Vindhyan now. Presently, it's all Vindhyan. So the thing is, the fracture pattern or the brittle fracturing that we get to see even throughout the craton is completely, or means you can say identically same throughout. There are no fractures that are exclusively present near or adjacent to the Dhala crater, which are absent in the rest of the granitoids, which are even more than 40-50 kilometers away. So, is there any reason for that, or it's just because that the granites are older? Obviously, there is that is my third question about the timing of the impact. Obviously, I think you can relate that with this fracture pattern as well. That and what could be the timing of this impact? It means the first point that you mentioned, that it has impacted on the granitoids. Okay, so the Bundelkhand granitoids, it is about 2.54 to 2.58 gigayears. Okay, and the quartzolite reefs, or the quartz reefs, generally people say like that, though I have a reservation about that, saying it as quartz reefs. But still, the age of that quartz reef is about 2.2. Though there are some debates about the age, but still the most accepted age is about 2.2 gigaannum. And finally, the you can say the northwestern dikes, which are about 1.8 G. Apart from the Mahoba dike, that's a different story. I'll not go into that. So there are three ages that are available, like 2.5 to 2.6 for the granite, 2.2 for the quartz reefs, like people refer it as quartz reefs, and finally the dike 1.8. So within these three ages, what you think could be the age for the impact between the granite and the reef, or between in the reef and the dike, or after all these events has happened?
Okay. So,
That I want to know. Yeah.
frankly, I have not studied the dikes and the quartz rings here. We are working on the fracture patterns.
Mm-hmm.
In the last field work, sorry,
Yeah.
there are several questions. I haven't studied the microstructures of the dike and the quartz ring yet. They show fractures,
Okay.
but until you know,
Mm-hmm.
until I can quantify it, I cannot comment if what came first. Pati says that the crater is 1.7 to 2.5 billion year old. So I will, for now, I will stick with his story because I don't have
Okay,
other.
means after the diking event. After
Yes,
the diking event,
yes,
maybe.
yes.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
because I do not have any other
And
evidence. And regarding the fractures, thank you
mhm.
for that, because in the last few months we took around, I don't know, a lot of 2000 data points from the impactment rocks, monomic bricks, they are fractured granite and outside the
Okay.
crater.
Okay.
So we will, I am
Mm-hmm.
hoping that in this summer the student will figure out the steel units, etc. And then I think we will have a
Okay.
quantitative assessment of the fractures at Dhala. So the fractures,
Okay.
uh,
Okay.
maybe most of the fractures are older, but at least some microfractures were new,
Okay.
because we did this fracture intensity analysis using oriented thin sections from surface outcrops, and there we see that the fractures in the rocks that are exposed in the northeast have higher fracture intensity, substantially higher fracture intensity. So there were at least some new fractures formed. Now, coming to your first question about
Okay.
why we do not, and I was just looking at there was there was a paper in 2019 which documents all the shock features. So they don't document any other features. They only say about shutter cones. So one of the hypotheses, but now I'm
Mm-hmm.
coming to hypotheses, could be that if we see over here where monomic bexia is present, it is present outside the crater. And Pati also uses these. This is a standard technique that we take monomic brexia as the to be located outside the crater, and we draw a crater ring uh, inside the outcrops
Yeah.
within the
Yeah.
outcrop.
Uh,
In a typical impact crater, uh, the Hugoniot elastic limit of rocks is around 3 gigapascal, which means this is something similar to the elastic limit under static compression, that the rocks start to have plastic deformation above 3 gigapascal. It's a rough range. This means that the rocks that were present outside the crater cavity had experienced shock pressures below 3 gigapascal. Because if they experienced shock pressures above 3 gigapascal, they would have fractured, pulverized, and then they would have been removed away. So since the rocks do not show so much movement or pulverization, just brecciation and fracturing, we say that they suffered low shock pressures. And this could be a reason. Again, I'm hypothesizing over here. This could be one reason that we do not see a lot of high pressure polymorphs at Dhala. Everything that was above it has been eroded away. So yeah, unfortunately, and
Okay,
high pressure
okay,
polymorphs are
okay.
metastable,
Um,
so they get easily altered.
okay, okay. Now, the last one actually, that is a discussion again. It might not be vaguely also related to your line of work, but still I want to means put it up. If you look at there are two, three layers. First, I'd like to discuss the layers, then I'll come to the discussion. The first thing is that, like I was mentioning about the age of the Bundelkhand and its surrounding rocks, 2.6 for the granite, 2.2 for the quartz reefs, and again your 1.8 for the dikes. That has also affected the Vindhyans or the lower Vindhyans, which is about 1.9. Okay, so now if the impact has taken place much after this, means the granite, then the reefs, then the deposition of the lower Vindhyans, and finally they are all cross cut by the dikes.
No,
Okay,
no,
so
no. So
now
the impact
during
was
impact,
impact was before Vindhyans, not after
no, no, no,
Vindhyans.
no, 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 no. It has the Vindhyan has already started depositing by that
Okay,
time, because if I go by
started
the age,
depositing.
then
Okay.
yeah, because if I go by the age, like you were suggesting, like also Pati sir has suggested 1.7 I mean 1.75, then obviously the lower Vindhyan is pretty older than that. It's about 1.9. The means paleoproterozoic basins that we refer to it. Okay, so the obviously the Vindhyan has started depositing by that time, and you have also this dike that has cut across your Vindhyans, your reefs, and also
I want to,
obviously the whole granitoids.
Dr. Banerjee, there is a range
Yeah, 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 yeah.
so the impact crater has not been dated precisely. There is a range from
No, no, no. I'm
1.7 to,
just building up a discussion with you just to know about this, because this is place. I have been to this place, but I have not means working on that. Just out of curiosity, this thing has arisen. Means what I am trying to explain actually, that now, if for example I am taking it as 1.7 or 1.75, just for an instance, I'm taking it as 1.7 or 1.7 GA impact. So at that time, you're already there are conglomerate horizons that are present, as Vindhyan is the marginal basin. Already conglomerate horizon is there. Already you have your brittle fracture ring that are present itself within the granite. You have brecciated granites that are present. So this kind of breccia that are present here, are they also derived from the surroundings, or they have only formed at that point only? That is my curiosity.
are you
That
talking
is
about
it
the,
possible, because means from surroundings they have been derived.
are you talking
I
about
mean
mainly,
during the impact or just before the, yeah, 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 yeah.
they
That is
did
the,
not
I mean,
move.
the source of the, or the
They,
protolith of that breccia. That I want to know.
they did not move. The magnetic grains
Okay, okay,
in the
okay.
granite did not move, and our microscopy shows that the magnetic
Okay.
grains, at least some of them, are primary.
Hmm.
There could be hydrothermal effects, but
Okay,
most of
okay,
the
okay.
titanomagnetites are primary. Thus, with the 100% confidence, I say that these
Okay, they
dynamic
are found
breccias,
at the source only. Means
yes,
wherever we are getting, they are found there only.
yeah.
Okay, okay. That's my actually curiosity, because there are surrounding rocks which actually is means they can contribute the kind of
Yes,
quartz, they can
yeah,
contribute the kind of breccia.
yeah,
That's the reason I'm asking.
yeah, yeah. But then,
Okay. Thank
then
you,
we
Amar.
will
Thank you
see
very much. Yeah,
something.
yeah,
The
yeah, yeah,
magnetic
yeah.
fabrics would be similar to what we see in impact melt rocks. So they show similar direction in impact
Okay,
melt rocks,
okay.
but
Yeah, yeah.
but there is variation at the sites. Here we do not see any variation.
Okay, okay, okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Great. Great.
Dr. Agarwal, in this section, what is that green material, green colored material? Is it linden?
It's considered to be equivalent to Vindhyan, and it is called as Dhala formation. It is considered to be equivalent
Is
in
it
to Lower Vindhyan.
younger than the cratering event?
Yes,
And you have no idea about the age of that green stuff?
no. But stratigraphy and cross-cutting relationship show that they are younger than the crater. Plus, we found some shocked cores in this Dhala formation, PDS. So we say that this definitely formed after. So some of this ejecta was later reworked and redeposited to form this central elevated area.
Okay. I was expecting questions
Okay.
from students or young colleagues. So it seems like
Dr. Agarwal, another question.
yes.
How much
Yes, sir.
material do you think has been taken away? What thickness has been taken away? Any idea? By erosion.
1 kilometer.
To what level? So
Sir,
the
at
surface of the cratering was 1 kilometer above the base of
so
the
because
section.
yeah, about say 800 meters maybe. It's difficult to comment, but 800 meters to 1 kilometer has been eroded away.
Okay. Seems like any questions from
Sir,
student?
maybe he is asking more question. I can't hear him.
Uh,
सर आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही है.
yeah, I think he's muted.
अच्छा म्यूट है.
Uh, any questions from student or young colleagues? Okay, it seems like we have no more questions. I think we should conclude the session. Okay, so
In that case,
should we
we
conclude the
should give
session?
a big round of applause.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
If there is no more queries,
Yes.
then we should give a very big
Yeah.
thanks to Amar, and let us give a
Yes.
big round of applause to him.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir,
Okay.
for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Then have
Thank
a
you, Amar.
yeah. Have a lovely weekend. Bye bye.
Bye
Okay.
bye.
Bye bye.
Bye. Bye. Thanks.